Welcome to Verbal Brick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome you all to the show. Today we're talking about the emasculation of the black man. Right now, black on black crime is not natural, nor is it normal to the black man and woman of the planet Earth. Right. Some of the things that's going on in today's time that we as a people participate in is not part of our past or our heritage. Some of it is a learned behavior that we learn from our sojourn in America and from our captives, kidnappers, i.e. slave masters, who taught us a way that wasn't beneficial to us. That's a fact. We may think in today's time that we're making our own choices from our own minds, and the choices that we're making will ultimately enrich us or benefit us. But then we get frustrated as time progresses and we're still in the same position that we were in 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Right. So today we want to answer all of that. And I want to say that the dis-ease and the sickness that was propagated upon us by some evildoers, man. Evildoers. It's still prevalent today, but there is a cure. And that cure is knowledge. That cure is the message to the black man. That cure is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his teaching. Because the underlying goal of the teaching is to free the mind of the black man and woman. And once you have a free mind, you can love yourself, do for yourself, and be yourself, right? Now, why do you have a need to love yourself, right? Simply because when you love yourself, there's certain things you wouldn't do to yourself. When you love yourself, you wouldn't harm yourself. You wouldn't hurt yourself. You wouldn't make decisions that would put your life in jeopardy. That's something that would never happen. And so we want to get into the root behind why all of this is taking place and what actually happened, right? And this is going to come from title Systemic Emasculation, a history of American institutional effects on black male dysfunction from the 1700s to 1950s, meaning this system been in play from the 1700s. And it's been bagged up when you hear some of the... Look, put it like this. Some of the people who you have in power today had been passed down a system and code words used to keep us locked in the same mindset that our parents, our grandparents, great-grandparents on down to the 1700s, really to the 1600s, right? That's why they'll come out and say, like Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick will come out and say, due to the unvaccinated blacks is causing a rise in the COVID case to try to send hysteria amongst his people, but also at the same time it wants to he's trying to create a negative narrative amongst black people in America, because that's one of the tricks that's used. Always create a negative narrative when dealing with black people. You can go back to that movie Birth of a Nation in the early 1900s, 1918 to 1920, somewhere up in there. Birth of a Nation create a negative stereotype dealing with black people because they feel like they would keep black people in check. They would shame black people when the so-called dominant society rejects you. Then you would have to walk on pins and needles and hope you can get their approval and their acceptance, because so much negative propaganda is being poured upon you. Don't fall for the trick. But we're going to cover this trick, right? So once again, we're reading from Systemic Emasculation, A History of American Institutional Effects on Black Male Dysfunction, 1700 to 1950. So if some of you wondering why you act a certain way, why you behave a certain way, why things are not readily coming to you, it's because you haven't broke the curse yet. You haven't broke the cycle, right? The cycle continues. Let's ride. So look, we're going to get into the overview. The physical mistreatment and subjugation of the Negro people during slavery and a different but equally malicious form of institutional racism in the decades since their emancipation have systematically distorted the psychology of black males and the people in general. Now, the physical mistreatment is supposed to go on. That's why you have incidents like what took place with George Floyd and Trayvon Martin and Philando Castillo and Freddie Gray, and I can go on, Sandra Bland, right? That's one of their ways to continue to keep the psyche locked into what has happened to black people since the early 1600s. And they continue it. It's almost like a ritual. Somebody black has to get shot down in the streets, and they play it in the media to keep that psychological fear going on within the mind, right? It's that's why Malcolm said, you've been hoodwinked, you've been run amok, you've been bamboozled. In today's term, it is, we've been played. You've been played. You've been hustled. You've been gamed, right? And it's still going on. I'm going to continue, though. Such that, as stated by Carter G. Woodson, and the miseducation of the Negro, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions, because his actions going to follow his thinking. If you control the thinking, he going to act in the way that you want him to act. Science. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. This unit is designed for high school juniors and seniors in an African American Studies course, and explores the nature of the institutionalized structures, policies, agendas, and practices from 1700 to 1950, which conspired against black males and effectively undermined black manhood. The nature of these systemic processes will be analyzed within their historical context and the psychological and psychiatric implications unveiled to facilitate a rich and deep understanding of the scope, sequence, and consequences. Consequences is a book that I've written. You can look up Consequences by Vince Cole Muhammad. Of the educational malpractice broadly defined, experienced by African males from the Atlantic slave trade to the post-Reconstruction pre-civil rights era. Students will be expected to identify, evaluate, and explain relevant facts in the experience of black males through their historical journey to and through America, which have contributed to historical and current black male dysfunction. The Atlantic slave trade and manhood. The Atlantic slave trade, or Middle Passage, as it is sometimes called, began the process of emasculation for African males en route to America, meaning that they had a system working on the black males to emasculate you and me and us so we can fit the agenda, so we can be primed for slavery, right? It's almost like breaking a horse, and as Willie Lynch stated on the banks of Virginia, and compared to breaking a slave to breaking a horse, because they can use you better. See, who we are today is not who we were prior to slavery, right? Our mission is to not get back to who we were in the past, but learn who we were in the past so we can be better than that in our future. And that middle part where they use tricks and lies to make a slave, kill that. But learn the tricks and lies that was used so you can kill it and get back to being the builders that we once were, but building with the technology of today. Okay. So So this is Daniel P. Black in his book, Dismantling Black Manhood, describes it as the slave's initiation into a systemic degradation designed to strip away his humanity and make him ready for the seller's block. They had to strip away your humanity to where they had to strip away your humanity to where you could stand on the seller's block and be auctioned off and not have any feelings about it, to where it would just seem like this is just normal business. It's normal for me to stand up on a slave auction, seller's block, and get sold to different slaves. Hey man, it's a process. I got to go through it. It's a part of life now in this new America. You had to be made to adopt that mindset. Okay. As referred to by Stephanie Smallwood in her work, Saltwater Slavery was an acute blow to both his sense of self and manhood for the African male, who prided himself on being able to protect and defend his wife and family. No longer able to function according to his developed self concept, he became psychologically bereaved and awash in a sea of shifting identity. If he could no longer function as a man, then how should he to function? And more importantly, what was he? So intense was this psychological shift as to induce deep depression and psychosis, sometimes leading to death. Some men threw themselves from ships, drowning themselves in the salt waters of the Atlantic Sea before they could be recovered by slavers, and others mysteriously were said to will themselves dead. Will themselves dead. Some, they would will themselves dead, then go through that harsh treatment. But it wasn't harsh treatment. It was the remaking of their identity and who they were at the core. And it's like, if I can't be me, I don't want to be a zombie. I don't want to be a shell of myself. Then I will myself dead to survive. Wow. Wow. Black states that men who once stood in the defense of their mother's and father's legacy, now under extreme duress, simply sat down and died. They saw little reason to live, for their manhood had been rendered dysfunctional. Under the circumstances, certainly this type of despondency is plausible. Now, this is, and y'all will see this picture because I'll post a picture of it. Although the slave trade was closed in 1808, many Africans such as Rentry were imported after their time. Peabody Museum, Harvard University, photographed by Helio Berger. And I'll show you, you'll see the picture. This guy was in the museum that they posted. His name was Rentry. Hence, if the African male was no longer able to rely on his own virility and ability to provide, upon whom was he to rely? As a matter of design, he could now look to none but his slave master, the one to whom the system had committed his entire being, the man upon whose will depended on his food, his shelter, his sexual connections. Whatever more success was possible within the system, his very security, in short, everything. This shift in locus of control from internal to external, self to master, is particularly significant as it relates to black male dysfunction, because the concept of manhood implies self-sufficiency or the ability to care and provide for oneself. That's the definition of manhood. Let me read that again. Implies to be self-sufficient or the ability to care and provide for oneself. Then that extends to the family unit structure. So their job was to strip that away and then replace the title of man with boy. Right? All systematically and wicked scientifically done. And it was effective. No doubt about it. It was effective. All the way to the Tuskegee experiments, the syphilis Tuskegee experiment. The tricks and the lies in that process, it was effective, and it was think about it. This been going on for hundreds of years. And let me explain. Who you are today is part of the experiences of your father within their genetic coding that was passed down within you. You can't break the cycle on your own. Why do you think I say read Message to the Black Man? Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this. The Honorable Mr. Farrakhan said this. Why you think I'm saying that? Because I'm worshiping them, or I'm giving some unwanted praise, or I'm propping them up? No, none of the above. I'm specifically calling out their name because of how they teach and what was taught, will break that cycle, because it was designed to break the cycle. It was designed to crack your mind. It was designed for you to struggle within yourself. It was designed, right? So when you take in that knowledge, it got to go fight with what the slave master and the oppressor put in your mind. So your mind starts to do battle with itself, right? And when your mind does battle with yourself, if that proper knowledge wins, then you no longer a boy, you get a new name. They call you man, they call you sir. When you win, when your mind wins with knowledge. And if you don't take in a certain type proper knowledge as a man, then your actions will be the actions of a boy. And you can be, I don't care what, you can be 70 and they still call you boy. Or treat you as a boy by the way you maneuver and move, because you haven't digested the proper knowledge. Okay, let's roll. As damaging as this process was to African males, white males rationalized its justification through the platform of manifest destiny, which posited that it was the purpose of the white race to rule, and therefore the enslavement of blacks was essential to the freedom of whites. Right? What that reminds you of? The white man's heaven is the black man's hell. Whites tried to justify it after they broke the mind. They had to replace it with something. So they said, well, hell, your enslavement and your downfall was essential for our white privilege. That was your purpose, because we're white. And so they had to create a system of putting everything good as being white. So they started changing definitions and white purity. I want the white angel cake. Black is devil's cake. Snow White. And I mean, they just had to make it the opposite. Anything black had to be negative. Anything white had to be positive in order to play the game. But we were on the game board and didn't even know we was in the game. We thought that we had to play certain roles because we thought that was who we were, because they had broke our foreparents long ago. They had been broke them. And once they was broke, they passed that mindset and knowledge on to the next generation. That generation passed it on to the next generation. That generation passed it on to the next generation. That generation passed it on to the next generation. Then somebody came from the east to the west and said, hey, whoa, wait a minute. This is not, who are y'all? This ain't the black people we know. This is the black people who we know. You all were gods, kings, building pyramids, mathematics, and, trying to instill our strength back into us. Right? But the slave master or the colonist was clever. He wasn't no dummy. He knew that day would come. So what he did was he started aligning forces within the black population to fight against the salvation of black people that would come from the outside. Hey, look, you be our barking dog, and you let us know if anybody coming to disturb our good Negroes. And you can tell if they coming to disturb the good Negroes, because they gonna say, try to teach them how to read. They're gonna try to teach them how to do mathematics. They're gonna try to motivate them to build themselves up. You let me know anybody who trying to teach anything positive to my Negroes, and I give you extra biscuit. And you had some out there, and they still out there to this day. This is the structure. White folks give me extra if I keep the people on a certain mental level, and then I protect them against those who try to lift them up higher than they supposed to go, because we don't want them thinking they uppity. It's a game. It's a game. Alexander Thomas, in his book Racism and Psychiatry, asserts the black man, it was repeatedly claimed was uniquely fitted for bondage by his primitive psychological organization. For him, mental health was contentment with his subservient lot, while protest was an infallible symptom of derangement. Hence, both religion and science conspired against the black male and his subjugation, which made his condition not only physical present, but also psychologically relevant. They used religion and science to justify their cruel intentions and behaviors and actions amongst black people. Corrupted science and corrupted religion. Why you think it was called a poison book? Come on, man. Why do you think it was called the poison book? Wow, man. Wow. But yet, and the irony part of it is that the truth is in the poison. Somebody, man, I'm trying to tell you. The enslaved black male and manhood. The black male in slavery was not more able to cultivate a sense of self and manhood than he was during the Middle Passage. Everywhere that he turned, he met a law. Like today. Everywhere we turn, we still fighting laws, but I don't know, man. There's something about the way we fighting. It's like I'm a tie one hand behind my back, and I'm gonna fight you with one hand, right? Just to show you that I don't want to hurt you, and I want you to accept me, and I really want to be your friend. So I'm gonna handicap myself, but I'm gonna fight you at the same time. Because we still looking for some type of approval. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. Okay. Everywhere that he turned, he met a law, institution, ideology, or individual that functioned to remind him of his inferiority. This allowing him agency, autonomy, or respect. Purposely. Now, see why? Because this is the thing. You had some of these white secret organizations, right, who would sit at a table, smoke-filled room, and go over the plan, right? Look. I mean, you see it all the time, man. Black folks, you experience that. You come up with an idea, right? You may be on the south side of town and you working, right? You come up with an idea, right? And you say, and they say, well, Jerome, you know Will, whatever, black man. Yeah, that's a good idea, but right now, I don't think that's gonna work. They shoot it down, right? But you notice that they implement that idea behind the scene, but didn't give you credit for it, right? You get mad. You walk away from that job. You go to one on the west side. And you say, yeah, this is a good fit. Maybe things should change over here. You come up with an idea. They tell you the same thing. And you wondering, well, where is it going? Why the door closing me over here? And I go way across town. And I'm met with the same resistance. Because they're part of the same order. And that's the goal. The job. They know they work, their job. They doing what they signed an oath to do. It's the game. right? They gonna always try to find a way to make you feel like you inferior, because they're gonna use your thoughts, your words, and your actions and your deeds against you and disqualify them, because they feel like you don't have no self-respect and no respect for yourself, or no belief in yourself. They feel like they made it to where they word counts. So if they tell you no, you believe that it's impossible to achieve it on this planet at this time because they told you no. And their word is the law. So you get depressed and hang your head down because you feel like that our hope is lost. White man told me no. It ain't happening. So it ain't happening because Jesus was white, and in your mind, God must be white. So the white man say no, then it ain't happening. You been bamboozled, hoodwinked, run amok. They played game on you, been hustled. You been played. Okay. Let's go some more. The black male's dependence on his white master for every facet of his existence led to the iconic perception of slave owners as the man. See? The man, because you depended on that white man for everything. He made it so. You didn't have a choice in the matter. Nah, he stripped you of everything when you became a slave and put you on the selling block. Then he ran the hustle, right? Then you had to depend on him for burlap sacks to make clothes out of. If you wanted to eat, you had to depend on him to give you the leftover chitlins, pig intestines, moonshine, to let you off to go for Christmas and party, anything. You had to depend. You had to have a pass to lead a plantation. So in your eyes, he made himself the man, or simultaneously to the God. That's why I stated earlier, if he told you no, with no need to go ask God because you thought God was white. Wow, the man. Furthermore, slave codes, in essence, expressing the view that slaves are not people but property. Franklin, 140, served to reinforce that black male's perception that he was indeed no longer a man, but something else, lacking the autonomy, agency, or nature to produce a self-sustaining life. So that means that somewhere the reality kicked in. Let's say not your grandfather, not his father, but his father realized, damn, man, I'm on this plantation. Now it's all about surviving, because everywhere I turn, this man is in my face, reiterating that I'm nothing but a slave. So I got to break myself down and in Rome do what the Romans do. If this is the position of the slaves in this new Rome, then I got to go along with it until one day we can break out of this spell. So he passed that mindset down. He passed that mindset down, and he passed that mindset down. But in 1930, what? Somebody came to break the mindset. Oh, man. Come on. During his plantation existence, the black male came to realize that not only his master dominated him, but more extensively, the entire system of enslavement, institutionalizing white racism, was dedicated to his subservience and subjugation. Venture Smith, in his slave narrative, realizes that his struggle is not only with captor, but with all who support the system of enslavement. See, the fight is, so when you see certain code words, or you hear, when you was hearing Donald Trump campaigning, and he was like, you know, get him out of here, punch him, I pay for the bail, and sending code words saying black folk you not wanted, and if any one of you Klan members or neo-Nazis or white supremacists attack him, I'm going to pay your bail. I got your back. Right. Code words. You know what I'm saying? We taking our country back like we got it. Or Dan Patrick, blacks are due to the rise of COVID in America. It's the same game. And but the thing is, like I stated earlier, we see you now. We recognize who and why you do what you do. We just don't want to play the game no more. Now, on this thing where some people say, well, you're not turned into a homosexual. I'm talking about, but this is for gay black men. For some, you born that way. Well, that's not true. During slavery, they was forcing themselves on, white men was forcing themselves on black men due to their wicked, evil nature, and was turning them out, right? And carried that system on. From what plantation you was on. And so, no, you wasn't born that way. That was just a way of breaking you. And it was passed down through generations. But today, it's a way to fight that, because it wasn't done out of love. It was done out of hate. So there's a way to beat it and get back to what your forefathers was prior to them breaking men like horses. You get what I'm saying? Not no. I ain't trying to be, cause I ain't scared of nobody anyway. But I'm not trying to diss nobody. I'm just simply saying, when they say that they were born that way, it could possibly be that that's due to a slave condition, and it wasn't done out of a free mind. Okay, that's what I'm saying. The despondency at the prospect of a lifetime of subservience became a tangible realization for black males on the plantation, right? They had to sit amongst each other and was like, look, man, we tried everything. We tried running. We tried reasoning with these people. We tried reasoning with the white woman. She should be compassionate. She got children, because because the white woman and the white man, they played the good cop, bad cop. The white man would beat you. The white woman would heal your wound, as she thought she cared. So when you had grievances, you go to her, thinking she would go talk to the husband on your behalf. She wound up going to her husband, tell him, you got to get these niggas in line. He wound up beating them again. It was a hustle, bamboozle, hoodwink, run amok, played, got gamed on. The powerlessness experienced by black males on plantations was compounded all the more by their inability to provide for and protect their families. Daniel Black conveys that African women did not dismiss their husbands because they were unable to function as wives deemed fit. Rather, husbands deemed themselves useless because, as far as they were concerned, a West African husband who could not provide for and protect his wife was worse than an infidel. Why he used the term infidel? Because most of the slaves that came to America were Muslims. Gustavus Vassa, which is Gustavas, and last name Vassa, in his slave narrative, observes that it was almost constant practice with our clerks and other whites to commit violent depredations on the chastity of the female slaves. And these I was, though with reluctancy, obliged to submit to it at all times, being unable to help them. In this way, white male dominance of female slaves in the presence of black males became another cogent source of emasculation. Emasculation. To have his way with your female, and nothing you can do about it. Then these sick bastards would have their way with the men. Nothing they can do about it. All they can do is pray about it. Wow, man. Sick, mixed up individuals. Now, if you look at the name, some of these was Spanish. You know, the ones that conquered the Moors when they lost Granada. A lot of them came to America. And if you read some of their stories in Spanish, there was black Indians all over them that was already here. They enslaved the black Indians too, and enslaved the blacks that they brought from Africa. Mixes all up. Powerless to help the woman, black males were constantly reminded of their impotence and lack of virility. In order to cope with these daily assaults on their self-concept, black males constructed masks. Put simply, black men learned to act a role pleasing to the white power structure, a role which convinced their oppressors that they had finally accepted the reality of white autonomy over their lives, while simultaneously struggling to find new ways of resistance which would restore to them their sense of agency. We're going to stop right there and pick up later, right? We'll do a part 2. But basically what it's saying was they had to stop fighting white men so they can come up with a solution to fight back. They had to let go and take the abuse so they can save the rest of their sanity and find a way out of it and pass that down from generation to generation. That's why you see today black folks starting to not take a lot like they used to take, right? Because, and then on the other hand, white folks are starting to show their hand. They're not hiding it no more, right? And the last thing that needs to be done is proper knowledge. Because it's not all about, it ain't about violence, man. It ain't about violence. It's about freedom, independence, to enjoy this God-given earth, to enjoy nature, to enjoy your wife and your children without some idiot coming in the middle saying, hey, what you doing? I'm superior to you. Give me your wife, or I want your daughter, or I'm a pull over and harass your son. And I'm not, we not on this planet to be no whooping boy to nobody. Right? Then we see, and then you start understanding and learning that. Then you connect with your God for peace that he can bring. And then but when you talk to your God, you do it with no fear, as if letting your God know that he is God and he can make things happen. Not God, would you please get them off me if you can? I know they powerful, but you might got something I don't know. Now you got to go in there and be like, God, I know you are almighty. Almighty, then these colonizers and these people that's trying to keep this system going, change this thing, let's move forward. Then he answer your prayers. Verbal Pick Radio, we out, but before we go minding you gotta check my movie out. I'm telling you, like this, you're gonna like the movie. You're gonna like Black's Journey. You can check it out on FlexNet TV. Subscribe, Black owned, independent. Also on vcmfilms.gumroad.com. Get my book, Consequences by Vince Cole Muhammad. Go to CD Baby, Cole Black, COLBLAC. I mean, just keep things rolling. You know what I'm saying? We're going to keep it going. Right here on Verbal Pick Radio, and we're out. Yo.